Welcome to the Rural Recharge Podcast. I'm your host, Jeb Smith, president of the Florida Farm Bureau Federation. The Rural Recharge is a guided conversation that allows you to cut through the noise and multitude of information out there. You should be able to trust your sources, which is why we're a platform that comes straight from the source of farmers and ranchers that grow what we eat, wear, and use every day. Our guest joining us today is Miss Lucy Abell, owner and operator of Abell Livestock Company in DeSoto County. A second-generation cattle rancher, Lucy grew up in Texas before moving to Florida to expand her family's commercial cattle operation, which operates in Northeastern New Mexico, the Texas Panhandle, and in South Central Florida here in DeSoto County. Lucy is one of the 3 finalists, Florida Farm Bureau Farmer of the Year Award in 2026, and a recent graduate of the Wedgworth Leadership Institute for Agriculture and Natural Resources. Lucy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm just thrilled to get to have this conversation. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Lucy. Tell us about some of your background and who you are and where you came from.
Yeah, I was actually born in Louisiana. I don't know, a lot of people know that, but I was born in Louisiana, moved to Texas when I was about 6 years old, which was the time my dad got into the cattle business. My dad's family was in agriculture and farmed and were in the fertilizer business, polytank manufacturing business as well, but nothing to do with cattle. So that was my dad's kind of lifelong dream, was to be in the cattle business. He loved going on trips with his family out west and kind of never lost sight of that goal and that vision. So it was, I guess it was around 95, 96 that he had the kind of got to the point in his career where he was able to leave the family business or sell his portion of the family business in Louisiana and bought a ranch in Texas and bought cows. He started in Llano County, Texas, in the Hill Country, which is where the name comes from. So our ranch name is Llano Ranches. So that comes from being in Llano County, Texas, originally.
Where's Llano County?
It's in the Hill Country, about an hour and a half outside of Austin.
Very good.
So I grew up on the ranch. I grew up, we went to school, my brother and I went to school in town, but we wanted to be kind of every weekend and summer vacation as much as we could. That's where we were. Yep. So growing up in Texas and New Mexico, I then taught school for a couple of years up until about 2015, 2016 that I moved to Florida.
What did you teach, Lucy?
So I actually taught special education. I taught middle school special education in Austin.
No way. No way.
So.
When did you realize, or when did you have the vision of actually being in ag and being a rancher yourself?
So it's kind of ironic because it was something that I always loved, kind of more than anything. It was hard to keep me off the back of a horse. I always wanted to kind of follow everyone around and get in the way a lot, most of the time probably. But it wasn't until probably about 5 or 6 years ago when my dad started to have some health issues. Kind of became apparent to my brother and I that if we didn't really take responsibility and kind of take on our operations, that they weren't gonna be there forever. I'd already been here, was already working on this operation here in Florida. It was kind of realized it was time for me to take a step up and take on more responsibility and take on more management.
So you're taking the management responsibilities in Florida, and your brother's still involved?
So he has his operation in parts of Texas. We worked together for a while, but then we decided that we would get along better and be better friends if we separated. So it worked out well that Florida's been that I wanted to be in Florida, and it's been such a good place here for me, and that's where he wanted to be. So it worked out well in that sense.
So tell us a little bit about it, because you started off in Texas, and Texas and Florida are very different, and y'all have an operation in New Mexico as well. What are some of the similarities and differences between those different geographical locations, demographical locations as well? Tell us some of the advantages, disadvantages, or differences.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of differences, and when we first came to Florida, there was definitely quite the learning curve. I think we definitely made a lot of mistakes along the way, but tried to learn from all of those mistakes. Like on an operation sense, like I think nutrition is so different. Like in the forages here, the grass here, how much we need to supplement, different genetics in our cattle. Those are all kind of big differences. I had to learn along the way, adjusting to like the environment here. But fortunately, with the kind of people that we had in place that we were able to learn from, and the community here, and learning from our mistakes, we were able to adjust and really focus on what we needed to do to be successful operating in this environment.
So the quality of forage is huge. It's a big difference.
Right.
But also the amount of forage is a big difference between here. What is it? I know Florida, give us your stocking rate in Florida, a stocking rate in Texas, and a stocking rate in New Mexico. What just a difference?
Yeah, so here in Florida, I think overall on the ranch, we're around 7 acres to the cow, but on our improved pasture, it's a lot better than that, maybe 3 acres or so to the cow. Compared to New Mexico, we're at about 60 acres to the cow on average. So definitely a very big difference, so it's funny. It's a question I get a lot from people out there that don't understand. I mean, that kind of have a hard time wrapping their head around how we can have so many cows in Florida in such a small area. And one thing example I use is that here it's like you can eat lettuce and like keep eating and keep eating and keep eating lettuce, but if that's all you're eating, you're not going to get all your nutrition versus eating a 6-ounce piece of meat. You're going to have a lot more steak. You'll have a lot more nutrition than in a lot more lettuce than that. So that's one way I try to explain it sometimes. But here we really focus on our like supplementation program and protein, or supplementing protein to our cows. We supplement year round, kind of give them as much molasses as we kind of keep it in front of them. It's one of our biggest expenses, but we feel like it's what we get some of our greatest return on, making sure we get our cattle bred and keeping them in good condition.
So tell us a little bit about that too, Lucy. Is it you're concerned? You definitely focus on genetics. Is it a purebred operation or is it a commercial cattle operation?
No, it's only a commercial. We don't have any purebred. It's all commercial cow-calf operation here in Florida. And then we'll take our the calves from here in Florida and keep them on our ranch in New Mexico. So it's kind of a stocker operation out there as well to be able to add pounds there before we sell them or market them from there.
So you and I were talking before we came on to this podcast, but you also do some other things complementing and supplementing the income on your ranch, and you do some hunting and things like that. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
We do. So here in Florida, we have a very good turkey population. So we sell turkey hunts here. We also do things like collect gator eggs to sell. We're a Gopher Tortoise recipient site as well, which is a very great, important source of income. In addition to the cattle, so we're focusing a lot on trying to like improve our pasture and like renovate pasture as much as we can. So one way that we do that is leasing land for watermelon farming. So we kind of have a rotating farming program where a different piece of land is farmed each year, and then we're able to come back and plant grass on the land that was farmed. And it really brings up the pH and the soil health. And we've been planting a lot of Hamothria grass that we can fertilize. It's been a game changer in our stocking rate for cattle. We're able to carry a lot more cows than we would be without that Hamothria. In addition, we do plant some Bahia as well. And then the pasture we're doing cutting a lot of sod. That's also a really important source of revenue. And it's an opportunity to come back and renovate that land as well. And it complements our cattle operation very well, grazing and sometimes I say that in Florida, it feels like we're in the cattle business. We're really just grass farmers. It seems like what we're doing more than anything a lot of the time.
A lot to manage, Lucy. I can tell you. And they may not realize it, but we're sitting in a very nice facility that y'all have that accommodates some of that too. Some of your hunting clientele, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful place, and a beautiful place here in DeSoto County. Y'all keep it up really, really nicely.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, all right, you're one of the 3 finalists for Florida Farm Bureau Farmer of the Year. Tell us a little bit about that experience and what it means to you to be one of those 3 finalists.
Oh my gosh, I'm just truly honored, and it's been such an honor and very humbling. In many ways, I didn't feel deserving, but I'm just so grateful through the process, especially getting to work with Andy, our district rep, and getting to understand Florida Farm Bureau's work a little better was a huge benefit. And then after meeting the other finalists, Mr. Woody Larson and Dr. Hal Phillips, and seeing or understanding how much they had each contributed to their industries and their communities was just very inspiring to me. I really appreciated when Mr. Woody accepted the award. He said that he was looking forward to seeing what I would do over the next years, and afterwards he told me afterwards that he meant what he said, and that was I really appreciated that. That was very inspiring and motivating, seeing kind of how much they've contributed. So in a lot of ways, for me, it was such an honor, but also an inspiration looking towards the future and role models of the others that are in that, that have won that distinguished award past.
It's pretty amazing. Those are some icons, legends in Florida history and Florida agriculture, and you standing amongst them. And they were very, very honorable to you, and they know that you've done a lot here, and it's evident when you ride on this ranch that how much Lucy Abell has done, and you're definitely not outmatched, but I can tell you what, there's a lot that you have done, and I can't wait to see what the future holds as well. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for you saying that, but I couldn't do any of it without the team, without the people that have, especially the guys that work for our operation and that do so much, and then the community that I've learned so much from, not being from Florida. And it's amazing to me how welcoming and supportive everyone's been, both in cattle business and the farming community, and just everyone seems very willing to kind of help, sharing of knowledge, and really helped me along the way. So I don't feel that I can take credit for that all of that myself.
Well, you definitely, there's some credit to be had. I know you're acting humbly here, that's for sure, Lucy, but likewise, it's all of us get a start in this industry. You're a second generation, and that's pretty amazing. Your dad's started off and given you that opportunity, but it takes somebody to manage it and to get it right. You give a lot of credit to your employees, and they're outstanding, but it takes somebody to put all that together. So it's pretty amazing what you do have. But we face challenges. We do face challenges, and some of the things that we're threatened with right now, especially as a New World screwworm, is how does your brother feel in the Texas operation with it right on the border?
Yes, it's definitely a big issue for our industry, and it's definitely something they're watching closely in Texas. But I feel like it's almost as important that us in Florida, as well as just the industry as a whole, are focused on it, because I think it is a threat. I think we have we know the tool to combat it. I think we're all very grateful and that they are working towards creating the sterile fly production facility. That was a big win. I know all of us, kind of all the associations, both here in Florida Cattlemen's Farm, and in Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association, and many others have all worked hard to make sure that Washington and that our representatives knew how important that was to fund that facility. But it's definitely scary. I think it makes me nervous, not just from the disease itself so much as kind of the ripple effects on the industry. I think it would create, I think it's not even a question of if, but it could be more of a question of when. I think it's more likely than not that we will have some cases of it in the U.S. and Texas, and possibly, I hope not, but I think it's something we need to be prepared for. But what worries me even more is kind of the potential regulation that could come from it, that would put a big burden on transporting cattle, getting cattle. We have to get our calves out of Florida, and if Texas is closed, if anything's restricted to Texas, that's going to impact us a lot in Florida. That if there's, say, requirements for worming, dewormer requirements, there could be shortages, and just the volatility in the market. So I think that's why it's just so important that we stay ahead of it, which is what we're doing by building the sterile fly facility. But I think we have to continue to make sure that our leaders and representatives know how not to take the foot off the gas pedal on that front.
It's a very serious matter, and I think as you've alluded to, it's that the long lasting or the repercussions from one action can be devastating to others. We may not have the New World screwworm in Florida, but definitely if a state of Texas is quarantined or shut down for entry like Mexico is to Texas right now, that can have an impact, especially on all the way up the vertical integrated chain of who we do business with, especially feed yards and things like that. It's a very serious matter. And likewise too, I mean, in other parts of the industry, you're especially with turkeys here, I know the deer industry in Texas is a huge business.
Absolutely.
It can be adversely affected.
I think they might be more nervous than the cattle ranch in Texas. Anyways, I know that's definitely a big threat all the way around.
A lot of people don't realize how significant it is. I mean, we had the New World screwworm here in the 50s and 60s, and it was hard to find a deer in some of these woods because they were affected by it. But nonetheless, I can imagine that being on the front lines in Texas, there's a lot more chatter about it there than necessarily here. When we did have it in the Keys, and it was eventually able to be eradicated, and boy, I'm glad it didn't end up in our state, because it would have been very devastating.
Yes, no, I've definitely heard horror stories from past generations that was their life was fighting that. I think eradicating it was one of the major wins from the industry. Absolutely. So we know how to do it. Have to make sure that we're prepared to confront this threat.
It's a large investment, but I think our legislators heard us, and our congressional members heard us, and likewise our Secretary of Agriculture heard us, and she understands the importance of it. This administration has addressed it, and boy, very grateful for the facility. As you mentioned, the one going down in Texas and on the border to be able to produce sterile flies to eradicate, what a tremendous effort that is, and blessing that is for a whole many industries and for our society as well. All right, so here in DeSoto County, if I understand correctly, y'all have a conservation easement, and that's pretty neat. Tell us a little bit about that, and some of the things that have resulted from that, the benefits and that have come to your ranch from that.
Yes. So right now we're on the Bright Hour portion, which of the ranch, of which what we acquired, about 25,000 acres, or no, about 15,000 acres. Sorry, is in the conservation easement. It was one of the earlier easements put on in the state, I believe, in 1998. Oh wow! It was a water quality easement, so it's a lot less restrictive than what a lot of other or a lot of the easements going on that are being put in place today. But it's been it's an integral part of our ranch and our operation. One of the things that I love the most is like the diversity that we have on this place. About half of it is improved pasture, and then about half of it is conservation easement. But they complement each other really well in our cattle operation. So we're able to graze different forages at different times of the year. But the forage that is available in the easement land is also very important for our grazing rotation. But it's spending time in the easement land, as you can get kind of lost back there in the woods, but it's one of my favorite places to be. It really feels kind of, you can look around and feel like this is what old Florida. Florida looked like, and to have the opportunity to preserve that. And I think it's very valuable that more and more easements have been available in recent years. That an option for landowners to preserve their property and bring in more revenue to continue operating, I think, is extremely valuable. And when we see the kind of the results of this easement, there's at least 15,000 acres that's still very native habitat, and there's less and less of that left. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to experience.
So on that you said it's less restrictive. There's no stocking restrictions. You don't have to fence out of the wetlands or anything.
There is. We do have a management plan and a grazing plan, so our stocking rate needs to stay within that. But I've found that it's we wouldn't want to be any heavier stocked than, so it kind of, our best management practices kind of go hand in hand with any requirements that we have. So we haven't really run into any issues on stocking. I think it's appropriate. We're able to stock it appropriately.
So Lucy, folks that are listening to us, they may be all over the world. And you talk about this habitat, it looks like old Florida. Tell us, what do you see when you walk into old Florida when it comes to flora and fauna? What's different there that somebody from somewhere else in the country like Texas may be listening? They don't have any idea what old Florida looks like. Describe old Florida to us.
Yeah, so I didn't either. I'm kind of one of those people that came here and was just overwhelmed by like the amazing kind of beauty and wildness of it. There's a lot of old cabbage hammocks, like just cabbage palms that just I think the temperature drops about 5 or 6 degrees and inside of them when it's really hot, outside, and just beautiful cabbage palms, as well as like a lot of palmetto flats. So it's a place we still do a lot of burning. So if Florida was like a fire landscape that. So whenever we do controlled burns, it's really important to kind of preserving the habitat there, and then it also creates really good feed for cattle. Like they'll come in and graze like wiregrass and some of the species that are kind of that regrowth after we burn. So that's one of our things we're able to do in the winter to manage that habitat. But it feels truly wild with the cabbage trees and palmetto flats, a lot of oak trees, a lot of kind of wet season grasses that are growing out there. And then wildlife it's a great habitat. We see a lot of deer. Actually, before we bought this place in 2016, there was a lot of lease hunters, and they'd really almost demolished the deer population. The first couple of years I was here, I saw maybe 2 or 3 deer the first couple of years at all. And now you go back there, and it's seems like there's big groups, and the deer population has really come back. We do have a lot of wild hogs, which are not my favorite. They do tear up a lot of ground, but as long as they stay back in the woods, it's okay. A lot of gators are back there, and then a lot of birds. Actually, an interesting thing I learned about through Archbold's research project at nearby Archbold Biological Station. There was a scrub jay research project that was done by a professor here on this Bright Hour conservation easement, and I think it was in the 90s. And about 2 years ago, one of his, I was contacted randomly by a researcher, a student of his from Cornell University that was studying scrub jays at Archbold, and he asked if he could come out and try to listen to if the same population or same group of scrub jays was still living in the same area that his professor had studied in the 90s. So he did actually come out here and did find that same kind of scrub jays in the same area, which was an isolated family group, I think. No way. In fact, they even had he said that they had a specific dialect that was, because the populations or groups are kind of scattered out in the state, that they weren't really communicating with other groups, and they seem to have developed their own dialect. So that's, I feel like, something very unique that wouldn't come from this conservation easement that I've enjoyed learning about. It's very special.
That's you can't see my smile because I didn't realize that scrub jays had different dialects and different family groups, and that's fascinating. Just something I learned today. That's for certain. What is probably the most? Do you have the most unusual bird or creature that you found here? Is there anything that outside of a scrub jay that you thought was really unusual or unique?
Oh, I have to think about that. I mean, for me, it took a long time to get used to seeing gators around. I know that's very normal for everybody here, but it took me a while to kind of get used to that. I also see a number of otters back there, certain areas. I don't know. It's hard to pick out one specific.
Do you see kites on the
I do. We do. Not in large groups, but parts of the year there are definitely kites in this area.
How about that? I just imagine that on the vast amount of land that you have here in Central Florida, you're going to come across some really neat things as well. So you've got a conservation easement that is preserving old Florida, and then it's a beautiful landscape with cabbage hammocks and palmetto flats and scrub jays that have their own language, and otters and white-tailed deer and Osceola turkeys and all that you have. But then also you see the effects and the footprint of humankind here as well. And especially you've got a landfill that's near you. Talk to us about that and some of the things that has that may be a challenge to you and your ranching and ability to ranch.
Yes, I think I've said this before, that there's times that it feels like the walls are closing in a little bit around us. So we're bordered our northern, both our northern boundary and our southern boundary. We'll have solar panels bought by Finalists. Solar panels will be going in.
Wow.
And then across the road from us is there's the C&D landfill, but they're moving to or pulling permits to try to convert that to a Class 1 municipal waste landfill. So I feel like there's something that makes us very nervous. There could be a big concern for us operating in the cattle business and in farming. We don't know all the kind of consequences that could come from that. We worry a lot about water quality downstream. We know there's a lot of good technology and that they're kind of following the DEP guidelines, but years down the road, we don't know what there could be some negative impacts on water quality. We can smell that trash from here. Another thing that worries me a lot is buzzards. It'll attract a lot of buzzards with baby calves being born. We've seen buzzards that are pecking their eyeballs out before they're as they hit the ground. They can kill baby calves that way. So we don't want to increase population of buzzards living here. But really, it's frustrating, or it's worrisome. We know that's waste coming from the coast, coming from urban areas, South Miami, South Florida, coming into a rural county. It's not good for economic development in these rural counties. And it's very frustrating to us that we should have to literally be taking the trash, their trash, and kind of living with the negative impacts, whether it's increased traffic or smell. Worry about food safety issues. If watermelons right across the road, we don't know what other unintended negative consequences that could bring into a very agricultural farming cattle ranching area in this county.
Yeah, I'm driving down the road, and just to describe it, number one is it's flat terrain, and then all of a sudden you see this huge mountain, and you can see it about 8 miles away. You can see that it begins to pop up on the horizon, and then as you're coming in, you get all the different truck traffic, and there's a lot of it, and then the plastic flying out the back and littering the side of the road. And I know it's coming on y'all's place as well, and one animal consumes a plastic bag, and that can be devastating as well. And I can only imagine the concerns that you have. I mean, in somebody's decision to do that, and right here in the heart of what is such a really resourceful opportunity for cattle and for water recharge and wildlife and et cetera. And it's nice to have a place that does have a conservation easement on it that y'all are managing for its well-being and for posterity as well. So, all right. So let's transition a little bit. Lucy, you're a recent graduate of the Wedgworth Leadership Institute. Tell us a little bit about your experience in there, and just what you learned from it, what you got from it, and what you're giving back now as a result of it.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you asked about or to talk about Wedgworth, because it was such a transformative, meaningful experience.
Well, that's
for
how
me
I met you.
in so many ways. Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
We had one of our first meetings at Farm Bureau in Gainesville. Yep. You spoke to our class. No, it was just extremely. It was. I think really for me, one of the biggest impacts is just the people and I think a lot of people would say that is just the people that I've met, like yourself, and then and many others, and getting to know. I think my classmates. I think I would say I learned as much from my classmates as I learned from almost any of the programming that we did, because I think the class is selected very intentionally to be a very diverse group of people, different industries, different parts of the state, but really wanting to learn and wanting to serve kind of is very important. but each person is in a different industry, operates in a different way, has a different background, and there's so much time together that we spent like talking to each other about what we did and how we kind of got to be doing or came to be doing what we were doing. And so I think I learned so much in that sense, and really just forming those relationships has given me such a like support system that I didn't have before. Within the industry, I think I had close family or close friends, but to have such a strong support group that really understood, was kind of going through facing similar challenges like day in and day out, was really kind of given me a lot of confidence, and kind of opened my mind a lot as far as like kind of possibilities and where I want to go and what I can do in the future.
Have you had any of your classmates come visit you at the ranch?
Yes, quite a few of them have. A number of friends from my class have been out here. In fact, it was really special last week at convention at the Farmer of the Year celebration that I hold. I was told I could invite or have a table of guests, and almost my entire table were my classmates who were there to support me. Some that are very involved in Farm Bureau anyways, but that were there to support me. So that meant a lot.
So it sounds like you made some good friends, that's for sure. Lifelong friends now.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
Have you visited any of their places?
I have. Yes, I have visited a couple of different places, and I hope to continue to visit more so that we can kind of continue to stay in touch and stay close.
All right. So you visited. They visited you. You have visited some of them, but y'all got to go and visit a lot of other places too. So you got to visit other states. You even got to go out of country. Now,
yes.
Tell us about, you went out of country. Where'd you go? And tell us a little bit about that experience.
So the first big trip is the national trip. So first we go to Washington, D.C. And learn a little bit about kind of what's happening on the legislative side and agriculture. And then we go to Gettysburg. I think all the classes do that.
Sure.
Visit Gettysburg. And then each class gets to go to a kind of a unique location on their national trip, a state that no one's gone before or no class has gone before. So our class went all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast. From Washington, D.C., we flew to Washington State. And we started kind of in the eastern part of the state and worked our way west, and saw quite a few different operations. The eastern part there was a lot of grain farming. But as we moved to the West Coast, we were able to see some like oyster production, and a number of some apple orchards, some apple production, some berry production, some different kind of diverse operations there.
Did you do timber too?
We did. Yes, we did. That was a big part of the state's agriculture.
Sure.
So, and we learned quite a bit about some of their water issues, which of course was very, very intentional given the focus on water issues here in Florida and really across the country. And we learned quite a bit. I think there's a lot of controversy there around dams and changing of course the flow of the water there. So that was a big issue. We were able to kind of compare and contrast to Florida's water issues.
But then you got to go out of country. So you went out, well, I guess that is kind of out of country. You went from Florida to Washington.
We did.
Two Washingtons. You got Washington, D.C., Washington State, and a tremendous diversity of very different. But then y'all went out of country. We went to a different continent.
We did. So our class we visited two different countries in Africa. We first went to Ghana in West Africa, and then we went to Kenya in East Africa. So that was kind of the big suspense throughout the class or throughout the course, because you don't know where you're going. They don't announce it until about 2/3 of the way through. So we found out where we were going and got very, very excited to go to Africa. But it was a wonderful experience. It had its challenges. 10 days of international, or no longer than that, 2 weeks of international travel with 35 people, but it was a wonderful time that really brought us close together and kind of broadened all of our minds in many ways.
Well, tell me, what is out of all that you did with Wedgworth, what was the most marked thing that impressed you? What was it that you learned from Wedgworth that was the greatest value to Lucy Abell?
Well, it's hard to kind of encapsulate that into one thing because there were so many different aspects. But I think in my transformation throughout the course was, I think I went into it being very focused on my operation and kind of like I can't fail. My whole focus is on my business and this this operation and throughout Wedgworth, it gradually gave me so much more context and so much more perspective that just in some ways to transition responsibility to really rely on kind of my people here or people that are part of our business or our operation to kind of enable me to focus kind of on not just the day-to-day, what I need to do, but focus on kind of long-term for our business, but then our, in the community, like for agriculture as a whole, just kind of a broader perspective on what's the most important thing that I can be doing. It may not be, that's probably not feeding cows or working cows or doing the things that I thought were the most important things that Wedgworth's goal mission is to develop leaders for Florida agriculture, and I think it just succeeds in that in so many ways by kind of getting all of us to really think much broader than ourselves and how if we're not out there like talking to people and advocating for agriculture in Florida, like it could go away. Like we're not going to continue to be successful if we're not kind of looking at the big picture and contributing in all the ways that we can. I think that was a big transformation to give me the confidence to kind of look more broadly and look at ways that I can be a leader or have a bigger impact than just for myself or my business.
I can tell you it's led to you being engaged with Farm Bureau. It's led to you being engaged in doing a podcast and other things like that, and being a finalist and Farmer of the Year. That's exciting stuff. So, Lucy, if you were to encourage somebody else to apply and be a part of the Wedgworth Leadership Institute class, the next one, what would you say to encourage them to do that?
Well, I mean, I think it's just an unbelievable opportunity that anybody in this that's looking to grow, that wants to, it will push you out of your comfort zone. They will say that up front. So I think that anybody who's really looking to grow, personally and professionally, it's a very unique opportunity. It's also a very big commitment. I think it's not an easy. I think timing is very important to do it at a time that one can be very committed to the program. But I think that anybody that wants to has a growth mindset and wants to be better, it will make you better for sure.
So tell us a little more about that. Let's expand upon that. It pushed you out of your comfort zone. What was your comfort zone and where did it push you? I mean, I've heard a couple of things, but could you be more specific?
I think my comfort zone is not leaving the ranch in a lot of ways. I think if it's up to me, I'll stay right here. But I think it in a lot of ways, just the relationships that you have the opportunity to form, people that maybe I wouldn't have been as close to before, but now I've just learned so much from, and I'm kind of willing to accept challenges or opportunities that come my way that maybe before I may have declined or said somebody else will be a better choice than me. Whereas now all of our responsibility to advocate for agriculture, definitely things that are out of my comfort zone to accept, but I feel like it's kind of my obligation at this point.
Well, Lucy, it seems so strange because here we start off. Here you are, you're a second generation rancher that is ranching in New Mexico, Texas, and Florida. and yet there was a comfort zone of not leaving the ranch. And I think, that's something that a lot of people appreciate about you, because that's not the Lucy Abell I know is one that's outstanding, that does speak up for agriculture. And I guess it's just because of Wedgworth that has fashioned that and exposed that and made you a little more sensitive to it, to be able to move forward and outward. And I just think it's amazing. And I would have never guessed that you would have wanted just to stay here. That's it.
Well, I think it's a truly exceptional program, and they really also do a good job of putting us in contact or exposing us to so many other great leaders that inspire us so much. So I think just the people that we've met along the way and got to know along the way, really kind of everyone brings each other up.
That's awesome.
In that sense.
That's awesome. All right, Lucy, I appreciate your time today. You have been exceptionally informative, and just thank you for sharing your story, and likewise that of your business here. If you were to leave one thing for our listeners today, what would you leave them?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it's like when I think about that question, I think about kind of what's most important to me, and I laugh because now I hear so many people talk about being stewards of the land and land stewardship. I feel like it's become kind of a buzzword, but really it's a word that I think I've heard my father use and other people use ever since I was a child. I think like there's people that might ask kind of like, why do you do this? And really when it comes down to it, I think it's just such a unbelievable blessing and privilege to be able to take care of such a kind of a larger piece of land in a place that land is shrinking. So I think they're not making any more of it. So I think that anybody that has the opportunity to advocate for, to fight for like the preservation of wildlands and working lands in Florida, it's become a cause that is of utmost importance to me personally. And it's an incredible privilege. And I think that I'm grateful for the chance. I really look at it. I don't look at this as like this is land that we own or that I own. I look at it as it's a privilege that like I have the privilege to take care of this land and to try to make it as productive as possible, but also preserve it forever.
Well, I appreciate you sharing it with us today, because it's a beautiful piece of property. You're a beautiful person, and it's just neat to be able to share that and share your experience and what you've done. And congratulations on your recognition, and congratulations on your graduation. You've done a lot of things in a very short period of time here of late, and just want to say thank you. This is Miss Lucy Abell. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for supporting the Rural Recharge podcast. We hope that you are enjoying these conversations brought to you by farmers for your benefit. While you're here, please consider giving us a rating or a review. It really does help us to continue to share the stories of our Florida farm families and the important impact they have on your community. Thank you, and have a great day.